So, Corey, is Ripple basically trying to attack the same pain points or trying to solve the same problems that Hedera's hitting?
No, although there's an interesting company called Coil, which is using XRP to do that. So when we use cryptocurrency, and all of our software doesn't use cryptocurrency to be clear, we use something called XRP, which we look at as kind of Bitcoin 2.0. It's Bitcoin without mining. It's Bitcoin with a faster transaction speed. It's Bitcoin without the power consumption that has become the bane of the mining world. But I think, more importantly, I think we're thus far we might be one of the biggest companies in blockchain, but it's early. We just see this very obvious problem of moving money across borders. It's certainly present here in Miami, the international hub that this city is and this region is, which you just heard in the last panel. But I think it is ridiculous that in 2018 I can send a text message with an emoji and a GIF file to a friend in Rome, or I can send an email to a friend in Sao Paulo with an attachment of an Excel spreadsheet and all kinds of useful information. But the fastest way for me to get money from here to Mexico City is to put $10,000 in a briefcase and fly it there. That's pathetic, and yet that's the state of the art right now when it comes to the way banks and remittance companies and financial institutions move money. Big corporations park money. Companies like Amazon, but much discussed here, Amazon has $1 billion laying around in Nostro accounts for the potential use to make a payroll or to pay a customer or to pay a vendor. It is crazy that in this era of digitization, this era of container ships that have a standardized methodology for moving cargo around the world, we don't have a truly global financial system. We don't have global messaging and instant data messaging in the world of finance. We don't have instant settlement. That's now possible using XRP and using Ripple's software. And so we're trying to attack that multi-trillion-dollar problem of moving money across borders. It's a problem that's lying there waiting to be solved, and we think we've solved it with the software we've already got in the marketplace. So we've got 100 customers out there that are paying us, remittance companies, banks, other financial institutions. These aren't pilot programs. These are actually software that's deployed in the marketplace and customers paying us for it. And it's very early days, but we're very excited to take the cost. The costs are ridiculous right now. I mean, you can send 50 euros somewhere across a border, but it doesn't really make sense because it's going to cost you 10 or 15 euro to do it. But you can't send 50 cents. We're changing that with our software, and we're doing it now. And it's pretty exciting to see what that's going to look like.
Dan, so with respect to...
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. It's the hook that allows kind of more spread. So I think of it a lot of times governments sort of like an invasive plant. Once it gets in a field, it just keeps growing. And the only way to get it out is to dig it up by root and branch. And if it's actually doing something useful, you at least have to prune it to make sure it doesn't overtake everything else. And I think companies that find themselves under regulatory scrutiny are frustrated because there seems to be no satisfaction of the amount of regulation. There's always more. That's particularly true in the digital asset space. So we've seen digital asset companies come to the CFPB saying, or come to the SEC in particular saying, please regulate us. We want clarity. We're happy to cooperate with you. What do you need to know? And they share, endless information, and they never get an answer. It's like Hotel California in a sort of way. You can never check out. You can never leave. Mr. Soloway, could you highlight the particular challenge digital asset companies confront when you have CFPB trying to put hooks into them in a regulatory environment where in no other part of the economy are they getting real clarity?
I agree, Congressman. I think the lack of regulatory clarity in the digital asset space presents a real problem for market participants there. It's my view that the proposed rule only muddies the waters here. Not only does the lack of risk-based justification make the rule unjustified, but it also leaves market participants in the dark regarding how they're supposed to prioritize compliance and whether they're even supposed to be covered by the proposed rule.
Yeah, so thank you. I hope that we do what our committee has set out to do, is provide that regulatory clarity. We passed FIT 21. We passed a ban on central bank digital currency. We passed stablecoin legislation. And we importantly protected the right of self-custody. Are there any concerns that the CFPB's approach threatens self-custody because, frankly, one of the most important protections we found as companies maybe haven't flourished, they've had problems, some have failed, users have been harmed, notably by FTX. Isn't self-custody a way to protect yourself?
Self-custody would address the risks that FTX presented, and the proposed rule's lack of clarity regarding whether these technologies are covered only makes it harder for developers and users to deploy that technology, given the regulatory uncertainty.
Thank you. My time's expired, and I yield.
Gentleman's time has, in fact, expired.
I don't have opinions. I have demonstrable facts. These facts are validated and these facts are repeatable. Fact number one, no one has ever shown that human emissions of carbon dioxide drive global warming. Never been shown. And if it could be shown, then you would have to show that the 97% of emissions, which are natural, do not drive global warming. Game over. We are dealing with a fraud. It's a scientific fraud from day one. We hear the propaganda that increases of the gas of life, a trace gas in the atmosphere, will bring a disaster and that we will have runaway global warming. Sorry, folks, we've known for 200 years from chemistry that it's the exact inverse. Now, I'm sure some of you tried this last night at the dinner with a champagne or a beer and you forgot to drink it and it warmed up and it kept bubbling and bubbling and bubbling and bubbling. And that is the inverse solubility of carbon dioxide. We've known that for 200 years. We see it from the ice cores. When we drill into ice, we have chemical fingerprints that tell us what the temperature was, and we have little bits of trapped air. And we can show that when we had natural warming, some 650 to 6,000 years later, we had an increase in carbon dioxide. It's not carbon dioxide that drives temperature. It's the exact inverse. Another fraud.
There are other symptoms that are even more difficult to diagnose. For instance, the financial situation of the United States. When I talk to my conservative friends right here, they always tell me that the problem is high taxes, but they're wrong. Of course, high taxes are extremely high here in the United States. I give you that. You're right in that. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is not the high taxes themselves, but the fact that they are not even really funding the government. Not even those high taxes, higher than a lot of places in the world, not even those taxes are really funding the government. So who's financing the government? Government is financed by treasury bonds, paper. And who buys the treasury bonds? Mostly the Fed. And how does the Fed buy them? By printing money. But what backing does the Fed have for that money being printed? The treasury bonds themselves. So basically, you finance the government by printing money out of thin air. Someone could ask, well, so if the government can print unlimited amounts of money out of thin air, why do they collect taxes? I mean, in theory, it would make sense, right? If they can print unlimited amounts of money, why would they need taxes for? The answer is simple, but it's very shocking. The real problem is that you pay high taxes only to uphold the illusion that you are funding the government, which you are not. It's shocking, but it's true. The government is funded by money printing, paper backed with paper, a bubble that will inevitably burst. The situation is even worse than it seems, because if most Americans and the rest of the world were to become aware of this farce, confidence in your currency would be lost. The dollar will fall, and the Western civilization with it. If the next president of the United States doesn't make the necessary policies and structural changes, sooner or later that bubble will burst. There's still time. You don't have to make the same mistakes we did in the 60s and the 70s. You can still jump before the water boils. Winning the election isn't enough to solve these problems. They will not simply go away as a consequence of an electoral result. It will take a total re-engineering of the government, top to bottom. It will entail making difficult decisions, like the ones we made in El Salvador since 2019, and they're already paying off. It will be hard. The system will push back. But you have the right to determine your own fate.